The problem is robust. It's robust politically, it's robust legally, it's robust technically, and there's never one solution. There's a lot of things that have to be done. I think there's going to be some internal fixes. I mean, simply the fact that NSA programs are being exposed, that whistleblowing is becoming more common, means that they're going to think twice before they spy on Belgium or Germany or Brazil. That the NSA can't count on total secrecy anymore, and that will do something. Right, corporations used to cooperate with the NSA without any risk of exposure. Now they're less likely to. So that's going to happen. I think there are going to be legal fixes in the United States. The NSA has two missions. One mission is securing computers. The other one is eavesdropping. One mission just took over after 9/11, and I think we're going to see lawmakers restore that balance. Whether it's reducing bulk collection, whether it's more oversight, more transparency, that's going to help. There are also technical solutions. We've built an internet that makes wholesale surveillance easy. That it's easy to go to the backbone and grab address books and buddy lists and emails and phone calls. And that's going to change. You're going to see technical stuff. So all those together, combined with better international relations, better realizing this isn't an arms race, it's not a zero-sum game, that a secure internet is better for everybody than a vulnerable internet, that's going to help. So all that together is going to fix this. I think it's a slow process, a long process, it'll take a decade, but this will get fixed.
Sir, do you think all of the technologies that are moving things underground, do you think that's going to help or make this case worse?
You know, any technology that prevents bulk surveillance helps. The problem is not the NSA eavesdropping on North Korea or the Chinese military. The problem is the NSA eavesdropping on everybody. And that's because it's easier to collect data on everybody than individually.
I meet and discuss, both on and off the record, with any number of reporters and journalists, where the government criminalized my conduct and you expressing and practicing my First Amendment rights to actually do so. Because that's what this is. This is ultimately an assault on the First Amendment. The reason why we keep it assembled here in D.C. at this rally. That's a fundamental right. So what happens when all that disappears? Or it becomes so constricted that people, what's the ultimate form of surveillance? When people actually begin behaving in a way that the state wants you to behave, right? So do we really want to lose our citizen rights and simply become subjects of and subject to the state? I don't want to live that kind of life. I don't. I used to fly on RC-135s, listening in on state-level communications, military communications of East Germany, a fascist surveillance state. I never imagined, and I think that's why this latest brouhaha, which is a major international scandal, where for many, many years, I've been finding out it's being reported, many, many years of surveilling the personal cell phone of Angela Merkel. I mean, why? What? Because we can? Because we have the technology? I never imagined. And remember, they're really sensitive to this. That's personal for her. But in terms of Germany as a nation, you know, we went through a really dark period in the 20th century. And now it's followed by, the Cold War and the Iron Curtain. And I became an expert in East Germany. I never imagined that the Stasi template would serve as the playbook for state-sponsored surveillance in this country. And they would metastasize. Our real national security is our liberties and freedoms. And we can still provide for the common defense and go after the real threats to our own security as well as international security. You don't have to violate the rights of the sovereignty of citizens to do that. It's not necessary. But see, they're using the excuse of national security to gain access to all this data because they have a hoarding complex. It's pathological. They just want the data. And every time there's a huge failure, like the Boston Marathon bombing, right? That was a failure, right? Yeah, they can find all kinds of stuff after the fact. What about preventing it? They use that as an excuse to say, oh, we need even more data. Of course, they ignore all the information. Even Russia gave them information and said, hey, these guys are bad guys. You might want to check them out. And so it becomes an excuse to erode our liberties and freedoms even further. You have to remember, there are Bostonians who actually were on the receiving end of not just surveillance state, where they have to basically shelter within. Shelter within is, that's, what is that? That's a police state mentality. You had people being pulled out of their houses without probable cause. Why? Because they could? What does that say?
Why are we here? We're against mass surveillance, and I'm truly honored to speak for all whistleblowers.
We are here together as one from all walks of life to rally against unfettered mass surveillance of the people because of the bravery and courage of Edward Snowden to tell the truth about what our government is doing without our consent. The Justice Department branded me as an enemy of the state and prosecuted me under the Espionage Act. Their intention was to bankrupt, silence, and imprison me because I threatened the surveillance state. Being a whistleblower can alienate you from your colleagues and friends. Being an Espionage Act defendant can alienate you from your natural allies in the civil rights and civil liberties communities. As defenders of the Constitution and a defense of the freedom and rights of all people everywhere, we cannot let this happen to future whistleblowers. Any domestic surveillance legislation must include whistleblower protections for the credibility and enforcement of any reform effort. Otherwise, secrecy enforced by repression will turn into a faux reform passed into simply an honor system for NSA dependent on the agency's confessions of violating new rights. I don't think so. Due to the material evidence disclosed by Edward Snowden, we now know in great detail, and I will add with much more to come, that the NSA does not have an honorable track record of telling the truth while keeping track of us without our consent, hiding behind secret laws, secret opinions, and secret interpretations in the shadowlands of surveillance. I agree, unacceptable, and we only know of government spying, illegality, wrongdoings, and violations due to the disclosures of whistleblowers. The public's eyes and ears, exposing abuse of government power in the public interest. But without adequate protections, employees are more likely to turn a blind eye to the privacy violations of innocent Americans and risk professional and career suicide. It is the constant possibility of observation without our consent as governed by those in power that stultifies society, renders creativity mute, engenders fear and erodes our freedom, with the acid served up by the potent brew of secrecy combined with surveillance for the sake of security while forsaking our liberties as a price we must pay to make us feel safe. I don't think so. I was fortunate that I did not end up in actual prison, having lived the virtual version for a number of years, for coming out of the system and speaking truth to and of power. Clearly a dangerous act of civil disobedience and individuality for sure in these times, and now defined as a criminal act by the national security state, aided and abetted by journalists and reporters, expressing one's fundamental and inalienable right to individual sovereignty in the face of a government bent on destroying it. The last thing a free and open society needs is a digital fence around us, creating a virtual turnkey tyranny, with the barbed wire of surveillance not only keeping track of our comings and goings, but now increasingly wanting to know what we think and feel, the very essence of who we are and share as human beings. I fundamentally reject this dystopian premise. And the siren call of security. If we just give up our essential liberties, given what happened to me and other whistleblowers like Edward Snowden. And so, it is time to roll back the surveillance state. It is time to restore the Fourth Amendment. It is time to repeal the Patriot Act. It is time to repeal the FISA Amendments Act. It is time that the United States government stops watching us. It is high time for us as the people to save the government from itself in order to form a more perfect union here and everywhere. We need to let freedom ring anew throughout the land because nothing less than our own future is at stake. Never, never forsaking life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
We gotta go.